Well, hello. Today's episode is for those actors out there. Now, I'm going to guess that you can see yourself in this story. You book a great job, but you're not allowed to tell anybody about it. Like either it's an NDA that you've signed or they've said, don't share anything on social media, but you want to share with the world like you booked something great. Well, today's guest, Rachelle Hay, talks us through how she had this conversation with her agents so that she was able to shout it out about the great gig that she'd booked. Rachelle is a Trinidadian Canadian actor with Chinese, English, and Venezuelan ancestry. And she came to me at a time because she needed to get new reps. And through this conversation, you'll see, I'll just side note here. Rachelle is one of the most erudite, smartest guests I've ever had on the podcast. I really felt like I was on my toes while I was interviewing with her because she has such a great capacity to articulate what was actually going on for her in the process of vulnerably putting herself out there. And let me tell you, she really put herself out there. When she reached out to managers and agents, she got an 89% open rate, 27 responses, and got 12 offers for representation. Now, she went to 15 different meetings. She found this great match. And what I love about her story is she went through all the same big feelings that anyone goes through, was like at the last minute, still like, oh my gosh, is this even going to work for me? And then she had this incredible response. So no matter what you take away from this episode, know that there is a new way to reach out to reps. But listen for the internal journey that Rachelle made, because it is my fervent belief that it is that journey that opens up what's possible for you and attracts in the right reps. All right, let's hear it from her in her own words. So Rachelle, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Brian, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
For sure. So first of all, let everybody know where you are, because you're in a different location from most of our actors who we've had on the show who are talking about representation. So tell them all.
I sure am. I'm currently in Vancouver, BC.
Yes. And there is a big TV film business in Vancouver, BC. We have to let many people, some people aren't aware of that. Like I remember one of my biggest commercials I ever booked, I was in Vancouver. They were able to hire an American. I'm not sure why, but they had a special work visa for me to go up there. And they were like, oh yes, every single person on set was like, I'm working on this show next week. I'm working on that show next week. So for those of you who don't know, Vancouver is a market, and Vancouver also is in Washington and Canada, which I think people forget that there's a Vancouver on both sides. So I also make sure we get that. So Rachelle, we're here today to talk about your fabulous new representation. I'm so glad you're here to talk about it. Yeah, look at that big smile. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you should, because Rachelle has done a beautiful job of artfully, visually stunning setting for today's podcast episode. And I'm so grateful to her for that. We care a lot about the way things look at Brian Brake's character and over here on Team BKP. And Rachelle just really showed up on point today. Just am so grateful to you for that. It's so great. So Rachelle, to get us started, to jump in, for sure. To get us started, I just appreciate your consciousness around that. So to get us started, share your results. Just tell us the story of, where things landed with your new representation.
Okay, big question to begin with, Brian.
Here we go.
So I am just so grateful, because at the beginning of this process, I was definitely very trepidatious, unsure, had so much self-doubt. And looking back now at the fact that I got these incredible results, I am just blown away. And I had multiple agents offer to sign me. I had more meetings than I could have imagined. And
wait, how many meetings did you have? Do you remember the number? Do you know how many meetings you had? How many you took? You can guess.
So
wait. I want everyone to know that
I have my numbers.
Wait. I want everyone to know that. So one of the things that obviously Rachelle worked with me inside of Agent Goals, but I'm just wanting you to hear her story so you can understand the possibility of approaching reps in a new way. But what I love that Rachelle is about to do is go look at her numbers, because inside of the program, we really track how many people are meeting with you, what's your open rate like, what's your click rate like. And so I love that we're using the data to help us here instead of the drama we can get into around who didn't call you, who did. So tell us, Rachelle, how many meetings did you get?
Totally. I just want to underline that, because that was huge for me. Brian teaches us, and we say data, not drama, which is something that I think is a thread to be pulled in life. I try to utilize that as well. And so going to the data, which I feel a little I don't know, I'm being so vulnerable, to share this out loud. I'm like, oh my gosh, is it okay to say it out loud? Because
yes, of course it is. I want to make sure. Okay. So wait, before you do, I want to make sure you hear this. Owning the data is not drama. owning the data is being aware of where do I fit in, what is working and what is not. It doesn't mean anything reflective of like how you belong in the business. I want to just make sure everyone hears this, because sometimes people will hear on this podcast, like they got 35 meetings, they got 16 meetings, they got 50 meetings. We've had people give those numbers before, right? And to me, great, lots of meetings is awesome. But the truth is you only need one manager or agent. You don't need to get that many meetings to have a great, successful reach out. But I think all of us have our good student inside who wants to also like get a lot of meetings or whatever. So Rachelle, as you share this number, just really, lean into that belief that this is helping someone else who may be listening right now, that there's a possibility for it not to be so like scraping or scarcity of like, can I scrape by and get one meeting and maybe settle with at least an agent? I just love the idea of you having choice here in the process. So say it loud and proud.
Oh, totally. Brian, having choice was something that was an absolute gift. And I didn't know that I would. You don't know anything until life occurs and then you have something in front of you. At least that's the way that I kind of look at things. And so throughout this process, I was hoping that I would have choice, but there was no way to predict how everything was going to unfold. And I ended up having, I press send, which is a big deal when we send out our materials, because we work so hard to authentically represent ourselves and hope that that resonates with someone. And I pressed send I was on a call with you, and that was when I pressed send.
I love it.
And so I sat there very nervous. I was even like, I'm remembering it right now. Like I'm getting a little tingly, like my heart's starting to pace a bit.
So wait, I love that, Rachelle, because what that says to me is you knew in that moment you were on the cusp of some kind of growth. Like clicking send was a growth moment for you. Even that send was like, I'm taking up the space. And also like, will this work? I'm sure was in there too, obviously. Right. Yeah. Beautiful.
Absolutely. Beautiful. It was a huge, growth is a great word for just what we're discussing right now, going through your program. But I know I'm digressing. So let's come back to probably what you are wanting me to answer. So I will share how many agents actually wanted to meet. And I was blown away. So my goal was like, I came up with this like number for myself. I was like, okay, I hope I get 3. And I just had come up with that number for myself because I was like,
I love it.
I hope I have 3. I hope I have 3 agents that resonate with my materials and are happy to chat with me, just learn more.
I love it. I love that.
And I had, Brian, I had 18 agents want to meet with me.
Oh my God. Rachelle, that is so amazing. That's 6 times the amount you were like praying for. I'm obsessed. That's so great. Yeah. That is.
I wasn't even sure I would get like my goal. And it was more than that. Like I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah. And so as you trace back to this, so you have this really interesting story about how one of like you had an accountability partner as we matched you up in the program, but they warned you about something.
Amazing ones.
And you said that and so I want everyone to before I move on, I'm sorry, I don't want to rush past that. I think a lot of people might enroll in a program and be afraid they wouldn't follow through because we've all done it. I enrolled in a iPhone photography course over the weekend. And the next day I was like, did I enroll in a class? I'm like, no, we're going to take this class. But what you're acknowledging here is the accountability partners, the buddies we kind of set you up with, kept you in the good and the bad of working through this for yourself, right? Because there's times when we all know you're going to be like, all my stuff is coming up, all my baggage around past agents and managers, and I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I think that's one of the ways that we hold ourselves accountable is with someone else next to us, right? So tell us the journey that you had of like somebody called you. Can you share that a little bit of what that was like? And you were...
I can. But I feel like before we talk about that, it's important for me to acknowledge what you just brought up, which is to me one of the biggest value points of going through agent goals with you. And something that I don't, at least for me, I think everyone's experience, I can't predict what it was like or will be. But in my shoes, the accountability system that you guys set up was such a necessary and supportive tool for my experience. And I am very fortunate. So I was partnered with Sam and Aaron, really, really wonderful human beings who are so smart and committed. And we all went through times where we had doubt. And that's when the others, we held each other up. And so it was something that had ebbs and flows in terms of who leaned on who, but I feel like we essentially all just leaned on each other. And that is one of the, I think, core elements that enabled us to keep going when we didn't know how to keep going, or to pivot when we were like, is this working? Is this not working? And we have so many things that can become maybe minutia in one sense, but also so important at the same time.
Yes. Oh, I love the way you say that.
Board,
yeah.
It's like this duality, right, of a lot of things. Like, I'm a person who tends to overthink, surprise, but like, for me, I care about the details, but also what I learned through this process was sometimes the details aren't all that important too. I know, and that could be quite a controversial thing to say,
right? Once
like,
you're in it, I think that becomes
don't matter, but
right. But I think once you're in it, Rachelle, I think that becomes clear. Like, what details matter? What can I let go of? What do I need to let go of? Perfectionism versus being detail oriented, I think, can be a very tricky thing to make a distinction between. And what I'm hearing you say is, my accountability partners helped me stay from like perfectionism and like, yes, you need to cross your T's and dot your I's in this space. And so I think that's a really beautiful way of acknowledging that. And then I also want to just say, on the, the non-denominational reverend in me needs to come out for a second and say, my belief is that whether you use the word heaven or nirvana or any of these words, is heaven is entered 2 by 2. And I think a reach for representation is often a lonely process. And the beauty of you saying, I wasn't alone in all of it, made a big difference. And I don't think it should be something that you do alone. And so I just love that you are aware that like, I took a village in a way, but also, and I'm noticing my own growth through it. So I just really love that you said that. Yeah, great. 18 meetings, lady, congrats. Now wait, tell us about this phone call though, because I think this is really going to be cool to the listeners. So listeners, I want everyone to just notice how fast some of this can happen. So go ahead, Rachelle.
Yes. So it was like pulling a trigger, pressing send on the email. And I want to acknowledge that everyone's version of this could look quite different. You do a good job of preparing us in the sense that, when we send our initial outreach, if that leads to crickets, don't panic, because,
right.
We can pivot and adjust and whatnot. So I didn't know if I was going to have any response to my initial outreach. And
wait, Rachelle, I need to underline that, because so smart.
Oh,
it's so smart what you just said. I want everyone to hear this from me, the person, the creator of this course. I do not believe that when you're clicking send, that there is a feeling of ready. I believe there is you're going to have a little bit of sweating, no matter what. Because I think that I believe this. I believe that readiness is a myth. I think that an Olympic athlete, when they're about to jump off that ski lift and do their tricks and everything, at that very moment, they have to go, okay, here we go. And there's some degree of just courage and bravery. That's okay. Like, it's like breaking the seal. It's like, here we go. Like, there's a moment that is a jump. There's a leap. Right. And so I just love you saying, I'm as ready to do this, but maybe nothing's going to come of it. I had my little prayer for 3 meetings and who knows. Right. So I just wanted to just acknowledge everyone that you don't need to be ready in order to reach out to reps in a new way. You just have to be willing to try. You have to be willing. You have to be ready. I want to let go of the word ready. I use the word willing a lot more. You'll notice, even if those of you who've looked at anything that I've put into the world in terms of like pages where you opt in for like a freebie that I'm giving you, I really try to not use the word ready very often, because I find that it actually is a limiting belief in a weird, perverse way. Now, that's not to say like the Olympian didn't like go to the gym and stretch out and get their body ready for the moment, which is the same as you, Rachelle, like grasping ideas of how to present yourself and preparing for those practices you did of the meeting and all that you were ready for those questions, those top 20 questions when they were going to come up. Like, you did all that kind of preparation, but then there's the like, and now we have to just we cannot play our homework anymore. As a great acting teacher once said to me, you have to do your homework. And then when you get to the scene, you're just doing, you don't get to play your homework. Right. So I wanted to just underline that. Sorry. We are really giving you the deep play by play here, and I'm here for it. So Rachelle, I appreciate you letting me interrupt so we can really give everyone the micro experience of what this is like. Okay. So this call.
Totally. Okay. Brian, with so many things we can talk about, and I think the interruptions actually service the conversation because it brings up so many like golden nuggets. Yeah. So yes, we're going to talk about the phone call, but I want to acknowledge something that you also just brought up, which is the not being alone. And that to me is one of the other pillars of support that I felt throughout this. My accountability group supported me. We also have, a place where we can go with the overall program audience and ask questions and have people share about their experiences. That to me was also really a necessary tool for my experience. And then I think part of what really helps is connecting what we do with you with our personal lives too. So it's not just this thing that exists in a silo. And so for me, what was really critical was my husband was like super supportive, and I couldn't have done this without him as well. Like every now and then he might check in with me and be like, how'd it go? What do you need? Things like that. And so marrying the two, I think, was something that was quite useful in my life experience. And you brought up someone who, you know, the athletic side of professional athletes, and my husband was a professional athlete, and so to be able to like learn from him and hear you speak about those, I think, traits and that mindset, like what I've learned from him is mindset is such a huge critical piece of all of this. And we can have a whole different conversation about mindset. Totally. That was one of the big things you mentioned, growth. So the growth that I had was a lot of mindset growth through working with you and through some of the habits that you encourage us to apply. So like, I'm going to use the word affirmation. You can, you know, call it what might be a more specific word, but, you know, you present us with this, essentially what I'm going to call an affirmation that we start to say. And it feels a little like hokey at first, because I'm like, oh, do I believe myself yet that I'm, you know, saying these kind of things? But eventually I started believing in myself a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, until I felt like I am worthy to, you know, present myself authentically and then share it with these awesome human beings. And I hope that someone connects with it. And so I've segued. I know I've segued.
You've done great.
I
love that.
Acknowledge these things that you brought up, because I don't think I could have done this the way that I did alone. Like it was a we thing as well. Like I do believe in myself, and that I had to have like find my confidence to be able to show who I was and who I am. But I don't think I could have done it in the same way without your support, the group support, my accountability support, my husband's support, you know, all of that. It all adds up together to not be alone.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Yes. Beautiful. So
thank you for allowing me to segue.
Yes, I'm glad you showed that. I think it's so important that we talk about that piece of not being alone, and also the personal piece of it, right? Because I'm a non-denominational rev, and you all know that. I think most of the listeners do. And so the truth is, agent goals, sure, you get a manager and age at the end. At the end of the day, what I want is you to be so full of yourself that it doesn't even matter if you get a manager or agent. And you just happen to get a manager or agent in the end. And that is my goal, because I know when you are that full of yourself, you're the best husband, wife, daughter, sister, brother, family person in the rest of your life, and that your acting is better. Everything is better when you're that full of your rightful space that you should occupy on this planet, I think. So that's where that comes from. Okay, so we have to stop ourselves. Tell us about the call. We have to stop her. We'll don't go forever.
I know. So yes, thank you for that. That was a very Ted Lasso moment, and I absolutely love it. Sure. One of my accountability partners, Aaron, he went through this process and had a wonderful, beautiful experience too. And what he went through it. And this is the beautiful thing about the accountability group, is that we honor our own timelines. So we don't all have to do all the steps at the same time as everyone else. And I think that decoupling of timeline gives us a little bit of freedom to move at our own pace for what we need. And what that also means is that it brings people who may have done something a little bit before or a little bit later than you. So there's learning to be shared and to be gained. And so Aaron, he sent his initial outreach before I did. And then he was very, very generous with us and said, hey guys, and you know what, I don't want to misquote him. So feel free for him to correct if you chat with him what he actually said. But my interpretation of what he communicated was, get ready, because some reps may actually pick up the phone and just call you, which to maybe people who are used to that kind of interaction, I don't know, with agents or managers, will not be surprised. But I did not expect anyone to call. I was totally thinking, you know, this is all going to be electronic. There's not, you know, and so he warned us that was something that occurred for him. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe this might happen. I don't know. And even though I had this heads up, it still like blew my socks off when I got my phone rang.
Yes, totally. Wait, also, who uses the phone anymore, right? And a total stranger calling you when you want to pick it up and it's not spam is also a whole new world of discovery here, right? So did you pick it up when the call came in?
Absolutely. immediately.
Oh my God. And did you have like what was that call like? Was it like a quick meeting, or did they set up a meeting, or was it just, or did you actually like ask you some questions right then and there?
Okay. Both. They asked me some questions immediately,
Yeah.
and they also wanted to set up a meeting. They were so enthused and loved my outreach that they were like, we have to get on the phone with you right away. So-and-so is happening, so we need to set this up to, make it work. But we want to, and they like burst straight into the phone call. Like it wasn't a gentle, like,
Yeah.
hi, this is so-and-so. It was like the same, I think, enthusiasm and kind of confidence that goes into that outreach came back at me in the voice that was on the other line of the phone.
Rachelle, yes, I love what you said, and you articulated it so well, that the same enthusiasm and like honesty, authenticness that you showed. Authenticness is not a word, is it? I don't know. But the authenticity that you brought to your outreach came back at you as a reflexive journey, right? And so I think what's important for everyone to hear is you don't get that kind of a phone call unless you have put some skin in the game, unless you have truly, vulnerably shown something in that email where they are able to get excited about you. And I think that is such a testament to the work that you did and your growth inside of this and what you were willing to put on that in that email. That is a huge, that only shows when you are willing to do that. I mean, do you believe that?
I think so, but I don't think I could have known how to get there by myself,
I totally get it. Because here's the truth. We all know, like, am I over talking? Am I oversharing? Is this the right thing to share? It's usually when I'm working with an actor, it's one of the two things. One is either I'm reducing myself to my receipts. I'm only talking about the things I'm accomplished, which is once I'm like, okay, we need to bring some vulnerability into this because otherwise you sound delusional. Or it's the person who's only talking about their passion for acting and things that have happened to them. Right. And both of them belong somewhere in this reach out, but marrying them in a way that lets somebody understand who you are without oversharing, without undersharing is also a part of it. People sometimes leave details out. And I'm like, this sounds really cool, but I can't tell if this is a TV show, a film, a play, a radio play. Is this a voiceover job? I'll be like, we need to detail this up. Right. That allows the recipient to go, I understand who Rachelle is. I know what I can do with her. Let me say it differently. It's a little bit like if you go to I use this analogy all the time, but if you go to a restaurant and you're like, I'm going to order this because it has broccoli and beef and and I like these things together, then I know how to order it. If you're not explicit in that first outreach, it leaves someone going, confusion. No. And a confused mind says no. I'm not the first person who said that, but a confused mind says no. Doubt inspires no. So I just appreciate that you had that call. I think that's so cool. Now, you tell us a little bit more about if you had to, where you landed, because you landed and you've already booked a job with them. So can you tell us a little bit about that? You have to tell the name of the agency. Obviously, I think that's important for you to share that for yourself. But I just want to share. I'd love for you to share what your first gig was that you booked with them and what that was like, and that you're happy, or what it's like with these new people. What are they like? I love this story that you were telling me right before we got on here. So I'd love for you just to share that. I'm not going to spill any more beans. I'll let you spill.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to spill any beans that I'm not allowed to spill.
Right. Right. In case you didn't hear that.
Wait.
She's not spilling any beans. She's not allowed to spill. So lean in so you can hear what she's allowed to spill.
Okay. There's so much stuff here. I may need you to help course correct me as I begin sharing.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I am beyond grateful to have landed where I landed. And I don't know that the me before working with you would have truly believed that I could land where I landed. I felt like it was a culmination of so much hard work, but purposeful work. And there was just this beautiful sense of, this is going to sound weird. I was almost weirdly relaxed in the meeting. And that really, really stood out to me. And I don't think at the time I realized that's what it was. But it's like in acting, our goal, I think, when I say maybe I should say one of my goals when doing my best possible work to be living in that moment, as Larry Moss says,
right,
is not that I'm heightened in a sense of say stiffness or extra alertness, but that I am so dropped in that it's almost like there's a calmness that is just there. And I don't have to try to be calm. I can just be calm.
Yes.
I don't know if this is making any sense.
It's making a lot of sense, because it doesn't, also calm doesn't mean that you can't be reactive to what's happening in a scene. It means that the inner voice is calm enough that I am here. I'm here with what's in front of me. I am not in the future. I'm not in the past. I'm here. Yeah.
Yes. It was, maybe that's what it was, Brian, that I was able to be comfortably present in the meeting, because I think in a situation where I'm really nervous or also potentially really like overexcited, that it's hard for me to really be present sometimes. But for whatever reason, however the stars aligned, I was able to be really present in this meeting. And there was something that just felt like it really fit.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would have sought that out actively without your approach, which is something that was new to me. You know, you tell us cast a wide net. And for a lot of people, that's like, what? And for me, that was kind of like, oh, okay. I'm just going to trust Brian.
But like I say, put in a cup of flour. Don't think about it. It's a cup of flour. You don't have to think about it too hard. You have to put a cup of flour in the bowl. It'll make a cake. Don't think too hard about the cup of flour. Just do it.
Exactly. I love your cake analogy, because it made so much sense to me, because I didn't necessarily know that there was going to be a cake, but I was like, okay, but I got to put the flour, so I'm just going to put the flour.
Yes.
So I feel so lucky. And there are times where I still feel like, am I really like signed? Like what? And they're such wonderful, wonderful people. Like, down to the core, like I love them as human beings. And I think you teach us, you remind us that, hey, we're all humans. And yes, we have these big dreams, and we, I have to be careful, because when I say we, I think I mean me. I don't want to speak for you or anyone else.
I think we get it. We get it. I think, Rachelle. So you're safe. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Brian.
Yes.
Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that there's the business side, which is super important, because we want to do what we think we're here to do and share and honor that process for professionals who we interact with. But in addition to that, they're such wonderful people. And I just feel lucky that they're such wonderful people.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
really,
that.
Really
And so recently, a little more recently, you booked something.
Yeah. So okay. Thank goodness you brought me back on track. I was relieved, first of all, because there's that nervousness that I had of, oh my goodness, this worked, in the sense that I was able to not compromise who I am, but still reach out and find people who connect with me, get signed, my goodness.
Yes.
And also then comes in my little doubting voice, which is, what if they think they made a mistake? What if I take forever to book something? What if they start to doubt my ability because they're getting me the opportunities, which is absolutely what I'm grateful for, and I know what I wanted them to provide for me. But what if I can't deliver? And I know that is such a big, convoluted, mushy topic, because how much do we really have control over in terms of when we book something? Yes, there's a side that we do have ownership and can handle, but there's this other side of, keep doing your thing and be patient too. So the fact that I was able to book something and have that external validation, not of my agent believing in me, but which is also so huge and important, but of casting choosing me, and then all the other pieces, areas and departments and production and pieces that have to be okay with this, sign off on this, like this, said yes as well. Like, to me, that was huge, because it was this, and I try not to make my entire sense of worth or too much of it based on external validation. But I also recognize that I'm human, and there is a piece of it that
we're susceptible. We're susceptible to it. It's a very even the most, I think, the most enlightened person can feel, when someone smiles at them, can feel a little bit of joy inside. Do you know what I mean? Like when we get the sun, when the sun shines on you, you feel the sun a little bit. So I think that it's okay to take that in. And I also, just before we get too far down this road, I want to make sure everyone hears this, because what Rachelle is owning very clearly is, I am the one who was bringing, this may not be your word, Rachelle. I'm the one who's bringing my baggage around. I need to book the first audition that I get because that's validation for them. And maybe they made a mistake. They have not conveyed that messaging or that at all because you said they were loving and right. And so we have to be mindful. I think it's really important that we check this and we just note it, because when you show up in an authentic way to your reps, they know exactly what you've achieved so far, and they are happy with what you've achieved so far. And they know that whatever is next is a journey that you're going to be on together. And yet we can still bring a little bit of our old story in that moment when we get into the audition world. So I just love that you're owning, like, this was not from them. This came up from me. And it was really freaking great to get some validation, even though I knew it was for me. Like, hello, we're allowed to like that. That's awesome, I think. So
completely.
Yeah, totally. And I know, so I want to have you share, Rachelle was really smart. She's like, I can't tell you everything about the show that I was on. And so you tell everyone how you decided to come to, you prepared for today. I thought it was so, and you prepared for your social media as well, and how you reached out to your reps. Yes. Can you just share that a little bit? Because I think it's so illuminating to what kind of reps you have. And also the possibility, I think a lot of people don't think their reps will ever even entertain a question like that. So I think it's so great.
Totally. I think, so there's an exercise that you have us do, Brian, as part of the program, where we get really, really specific about what kind of relationship we want to have with our representation. And I acknowledge that sometimes these exercises can feel a little bit work-like or tedious because you do ask a lot of us, but I think it's fair because we are asking a lot of ourselves and what we want to achieve. And so in doing a lot of that exercise, I realized that one of the things that I value is being able to have a relationship of communication with my reps and not being afraid to go to them and say, hey, I have this question. Obviously, there's this line of having your own, I think, voice of knowing when you can kind of figure it out yourself and knowing when, okay, no, I think I do need to check in. And that's a tricky line sometimes to find.
Sure.
But I feel like once you cross the line, you're like, no, this is really important. And I do want to get their input. I'm really grateful that I can do that. And I have done that. And so in booking this show on a major network,
yes,
I was so excited and just relieved as well. And I wanted to share about it in a way that is okay. And so I can't say the specifics yet, but I did want to at least say that or acknowledge this achievement because I didn't achieve it by myself.
Right.
You know, it's this village and it's this team, and I also want to practice celebrating these wins. And so I wanted to share on my social media, and I also wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't hopefully be an oopsie. So I did some of my own prep and thinking and brainstorming, and I came up with some stuff. And I reached out to my rep and I said, "Hey, I'm wanting to share this. I want to be respectful of what's okay, but here's what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And it was.
And wait, before you go any further, I want to make sure everyone gets that. Like, this is like an NDA situation, everybody. In case you haven't clocked that, because we kind of jumped right into it. Make sure like this is a situation where like we can't go revealing too much, and so. Rachelle very wisely was like, I've done my homework. I want to share something about this. And then she said, I'm going to ask my reps, what do you think? Can I share that? Did I get that right? Is that kind of how that rolled out?
Mostly right. Yeah. Like I'm such a technical person and it is sometimes debilitating. There was an NDA. It's just more so that I want to be respectful of the timelines and the contract and not saying anything before it's out. Right. But yeah, you pretty much got it.
It's like an unspoken NDA. So, let's be like every TV show's like, you can't take any pictures. You can't show this online, like all those kind of rules. Right. Yeah.
That's the bucket.
Yeah.
So I reached out to them and was like, how do you prefer I handle this? And so we came up with some wording, and here I'll check my wording.
Oh my God, I would love it.
It sounds so simple, but the wording that we came up with is actually wording that you and I have used in this conversation already.
Great.
Which is I just said booked on a network series, and that I was grateful for my acting role. So that's it boils down to like these couple words, but I think is the bigger takeaway is that it happened, but it didn't happen by accident. I think it all happened because of all these things that came together and the support and the alignment. And then I was able to have this conversation to just check in. I was able to just check in and figure out how to navigate it, because I wanted to be very respectful of their needs and not put myself, hopefully not do something that I didn't know how to work.
Right. And what I hear about this, and I want everyone to hear, is like, imagine, for those of you listening who don't have representation yet or had crappy representation in the past, being able to say, hey, I want to put a message into the world. Can you help me say yes to this language that I'm thinking about using? And that your agents are very on board with, yes, here's what we think it is. And like, to be part of it, instead of what I think many people hear when they're with a non-great match agent, is nothing, no response at all. I mean, I have so many actors who will come and will say, I just never hear back from my reps. And it breaks my heart, because sometimes it's like, I've just taken new headshots. Can you help me choose my photos? And silence. And so I just love the engagement level that Rachelle, I'm just so happy for you that is how you matched, right? And I think that I truly believe that comes from the beginning of this process, from showing up in an authentic way so someone can see themselves as being alongside you in that journey. So that's still, I believe, a great testament to how you're showing up, and how you said, I want a relationship where I'm not afraid to communicate. And so you said, I'm going to reach out to them. You could have very easily just done your safest bet and posted, but you said, no, I want to have a relationship where it feels like I'm communicating. So I just appreciate that. And I'm going to go back one more thing that you said, and I want everyone to lean in. If you're multitasking, listen right now, which is, when it comes to imagining your perfect agent, and you'll do an exercise where you're like, well, they do this and they do that and da 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 da. And that is not the kind of exercise we're talking about. We're talking about, what kind of relationship do you want to have with them? And that is very different than, there's 3 people in the office and they have 10 people on their roster and da 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 da, which is like a list for Santa Claus. This is, how do I need to be so this relationship is possible? It's a very different conversation with yourself, which is why I think you said a little bit like, it can be a little tedious or hard, because you have to really think, who do I need to be? And I think that's a very different question that we're asking. And then what you said so beautifully about being, I'm just narrating a little bit of what I heard you say, is being in that meeting and feeling present. I didn't know it at the time, but afterwards, that safety, that comfort, I prepared myself to be able to feel that way, but having that with them was one of the signs that this was my people. And I think that's such a beautiful way to land. If you were going to identify one part of agent goals that helped you the very most, what would you say what would that be, and why?
What is coming up right now, Brian? I might not say one. So just one. So mindset is a big piece of this. The support and the accountability partners, and then the overall encouragement that everyone brings to helping along the way is a big one. So that I am not alone theme.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thought that is put into all the little pieces. And if I tried to understand like the science behind how the cake is made, I would not have necessarily been able to figure out, well, why do we do this way and that way, and this other thing kind of tweaked this way. But it was only when I finished everything and felt like I could settle, and then looked back, I was able to be like, this all makes sense now. And I was able to connect, I think, some of the feedback that I got from reps through the meetings, even in the communication to set up the meetings.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, it makes sense why we word things like this, or why we include certain things. Something that stood out for me, Brian, and it's connected to all of this, is a lot of what you teach us about what is valuable and what we have achieved. I didn't necessarily, before doing this, believe that stuff was worthy. And so I feel like the specificity you bring to, nope, let's talk about this and we can word it like this. I was able to almost see myself through a whole other lens of, oh my gosh, like, who is this person? They sound really good on paper. And I'm like, wait, oh my God. And so it all makes sense when I then look back. But in the thick of it, like when I am mixing the butter, when I'm doing all the cake making, I'm just like, why? Like, why?
Why is it a quarter? Yes. Why is it a quarter teaspoon of baking soda? Why does it have to be labeled this way? Why does this need to be hyperlinked? Like, I can totally get it. And Rachelle, I will say, in our coaching calls, sometimes you brought some really great why questions to those calls. And I think that many people learn through understanding the why. And so there probably were certain times when you did need to know, I need to know a little bit of the why here. And other times like, I don't get it yet, but I still need to get it done. So I'm going to do it without understanding it yet. And so I love that you were able to like see the constellation when you looked back, like this over here. Oh, whoa, this does make a shape. And what I want to just love that you just said, and so much, and I want to make sure you hear this from me, is on paper, I was like, who is this person? And then what I hear you say is, I started to recognize, oh, that's just me. I just didn't understand myself in that way. Or I didn't know how to embrace or share myself in this way. Or I never knew how to use the language to say it this way. Because the person on paper was no different than the person who decided to sign up for this course. We didn't tell lies, right? And make stories
Absolutely
up,
not.
Right. So I think that's really a beautiful thing to share, that you shared that. I think it's important for people to hear that. So, okay, another question for you. I'm going to do a little bit of speed questions a little bit. Not really speed. We take our time. What did you might have already answered this question. In fact, I know you just did. This next question I was going to ask you is, what did you learn about yourself in this process? And I feel like you just answered that. Is there anything else you want to share that we didn't cover?
Maybe there's a piece in one of the affirmations that you have us do that talks about being capable and practicing saying that, even though it felt a little silly the first like however many times of saying the words out loud.
Yeah.
Eventually I got to a place where consistency of practicing action. So it's all linked. So I would practice the affirmation, which, is saying, I'm capable and I can solve these things in a much more nicer sounding way. And then actually practicing connecting that thought to the words, to the movement in my body of getting up or opening or doing something. It's like, I guess it's kind of like any habit building or any mindset work. I'm not a mindset. I can't talk to this on an expert level, but from my experience, practicing thinking that way and then practicing speaking that way and then practicing doing helped me get into this habit of anytime I came up with a self-doubt or a problem or an obstacle or an opportunity, I was like, wait, I have this like system that I can practice. Okay, think it, say it, do something. And that eventually becomes this like way of being. It's not easy. I don't like suddenly, I don't know, drip off my self-doubt. Like I still am me and I still have a lot of baggage or hangups or whatever we want to label these things. But I feel like practicing this response makes it a little bit less impossible to keep practicing the response. But it's like continuous, I think it's just keeping on.
What I love that you said, Rachelle, and I want to zero in on what I think a lot of times mindset can sometimes get like, everyone's talking about mindset, doesn't mean anything, but I love the way that you're articulating it now. And one of the things that I want to acknowledge is the lesson you learned. So no, it is not easy, but it is more efficient. So let me say that is you can continually go through the old journey, the old limiting belief, you can have that lesson you're learning for decades over and over and over again. And something like this can disrupt that record, can disrupt that tape where you're building a habit. Like, I can choose to react to this differently. I have a methodology and a system, like you said, to react to this moment differently. And I think that is such a beautiful, the way you articulated that was really beautiful. So there are probably a lot of actors listening or watching on YouTube right now, and they were in the same place you were at the beginning of this whole process. And what would you want to say to them in terms of what you've taken away or what you want them to hear? A lot of actors, I think, get stuck in representation is like, I have to get the next credit. And when I get the credit, I'll get the agent. Or when I get my new headshots, that'll help me get the agent. And it's I have to do one more thing before I'm worthy of it. So I'm just, for that actor who's listening, what would you want to say to them?
You are worthy. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And to me, part of what comes up for me when you say that even is like, you've already done enough. I want to think you've had quite a career. I'm going to imagine, unless you're a 4-year-old who just figured out today you want to be an actor, great, good for you, 4-year-olds who are listening. But I think most actors who are listening to this podcast have done some training. They've done some work on themselves. They booked a couple things here or there. And without assigning value to, like, I think that an actor does need to think about, like, I want to book a bigger job next job, or I want my next job to have more exposure, let's say that way, right? An actor needs to think about that, but it doesn't need to be the only reason that makes you worthy of getting more opportunity, right? Yeah, that's really important. Rachelle, this was I loved hearing all about your journey here. Is there anything else you want to share that you get a chance to share with anybody today that's important?
Maybe I'll bring it back to where I started, which is I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, which to some people, they may have no idea where that is on the map. And go on Google and look it up. You can find it really close to the equator. And growing up on a beautiful Twin Island Republic, I had this different idea of what the world was and what was possible. And I created, without necessarily knowing, these, in some ways, maybe limiting self-beliefs of what I thought Hollywood was. And to me, as a little girl, that was something on a TV screen or on the cinema screen that was unattainable. And so coming from that to now being able to almost touch it, to reach it, for it to be something so tangible. Like, I look back at that little girl who could not have believed what was possible. And I think that's what I want to share, that whatever you think your world is, or whatever you know, it is valid. And maybe there's more. Like, maybe there's bigger things too. And if that's something that lights you up, then you can go for that. At least that's what I hope I can share. I don't know how else to say it. I feel like there's probably a better way, but that's the best I can do right now.
I love the way you've said that. And that really goes with, what I'm trying to say with all the work that I do. So I appreciate you saying that, because our passions, I believe, are planted in us by the universe, by God, whatever your word you want to use. And that our striving for those passions, that calling, you might say, is what will predict the path of your life, by you walking towards it, by you taking action towards it. And it's the reason why you live where you live. You met the husband that you meet. You took the headshots at that place. You stopped at that Starbucks on the way to set that day. Like, that you talked to that barista. That it is one of the guiding factors of our lives. If we believe that there's any rhyme or reason to that which is beyond us, then I think that's part of it. So I love that you articulated, like, your lived experience is true. And if you have a desire, it's probably there for a reason. So I appreciate that so much, Rachelle. And thank you so much for coming on and really sharing authentically. If people want to keep up with you or see what's going on, is there a place they can do that?
They can find me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rachelle Hay. Yeah.
Rachelle Hay, and it's RACHELLEHAY. And is it just at Rachelle Hay?
Brian.
Yeah, right?
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast today. I'm always a fan. And thank you just so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Brian. And thank everyone who is listening or listened or just shares themselves in some way. Thank you all so much.